everyone, how's it going? So I'm here at long last to do Josh's Muffin book tag, which was created by Josh over at Literary Gladiators, and I was tagged a while back by Elena Macretina, and I will leave links to both of their videos. So, this is just a bunch of questions based on muffins. And the first one is blueberry muffins. If someone said literature, who is the first writer that comes to mind? And my answer is quite boring. I went with Homer, because, you know, early on the kind of synapse in my brain was formed that Homer, you know, the Iliad and the Odyssey are the first great works of Western literature. And so that synapse was just formed. So yeah, usually if I just think of the abstract idea of literature, it's probably Homer. Homer or Shakespeare, but mostly Homer, I think. Number 2, English, a work of British literature that became easier to understand when discussed. And for me, this is, again, kind of boring, but Hamlet. I read this once, kind of cold, went in cold, and didn't really get the whole fuss over it. No, I guess I liked some of the poetry, but like in terms of just in terms of its artistic merits, I just didn't get why it's such a monumental work of literature. And but then I kind of you know, I reread it just this last year. There was about a year or 2 years in between the two times I read it, and in that time I had listened to several interviews with Harold Bloom, and I'd read a little the introduction to Harold Bloom's book about Shakespeare. And while I realized that listening to an interview or reading isn't exactly a discussion, it is sort of a discussion, because I mean, you know, when you're reading, if you're reading critically, you are kind of having a dialogue with the author, and you know, because you can disagree with them and such. But anyway, just listening to what he had to say and thinking about it, and then going back to read Hamlet, really brought it to life for me, and really gave me a much better appreciation for it, and it is now one of my favorite works of literature ever. So yeah, number 3, Corn, a book that is great to take on the go and read at any time. This book is not actually that great to take on the go because it's huge. It is my 20th century American poetry anthology. It is, as I said, gigantic. But yeah, if I'm sitting around and I'm not working on a specific volume of poetry at the moment, and I just want to read a poem, this is most often what I go to. I don't know what it is about 20th century American poets, but I really like them. Maybe it's because I'm un-American, I don't know, but yeah, this is usually what I go for. I found a lot of my favorite poets in here for the first time, so yeah. Number 4, Chocolate Chip, a writer you feel was or has been able to write during all aspects of their lives. And for this, I went with Mary Karr. This is just the first of her memoirs, but she of course has 2 other memoirs. So basically she's literally written about her entire life. You know, this is her childhood. I think it's from when she's like 8 to when she's like 9 or 10. And then she has a second memoir, Cherry, which is about her teenage years. And then a third memoir, which is her largest memoir, and that one is actually my favorite. Lit, it's called, and it's about her as a young adult in her 20s, and getting married, and having a son, and becoming an alcoholic, and recovering. And it's also the story of her becoming a poet. And that memoir, that third memoir of hers, actually ends with her publishing this one, her first volume of memoir, The Liars Club. Yeah, she very much seems to have been able to write about all aspects of her life. Although I feel like this answer is almost cheating because, you know, it's memoir, so of course, you know, that's what memoir is kind of about, but it was the only author I could think of, and I am a big fan of Mary Karr, so yeah. Number 5, Oatmeal Raisin, a bookish trait you feel is just not necessary. I don't think I really have an answer for this one, because, excuse me, you know, I feel like basically any trait to a book, if the author is doing a good job, then they're gonna make it work. You know, even if it's a cliche or something that's used a lot, you know, if the author's doing a good job, then they're gonna make it work. So I don't really have an answer for that. I don't have any trait that I specifically think no one should include in their book. Next is Bran. What kind of reading material do you find you constantly force yourself through? I actually made sort of a private resolution to myself earlier this year, not to read anything that I felt like I was forcing myself through, to only read things that I read because I intrinsically enjoyed them. Because I have been finding I was finding somewhat last year at times that I felt like I was reading more what I felt like I should read rather than what I wanted to be reading. And I need to just let myself read what I want to read so that I just, enjoy what I'm reading, basically. So, for now, nothing. Next is Cranberry-Orange. Which two characters from different works would you like to see in one? And for this, I'm going back to Hamlet. I would like to see Hamlet and Cleopatra from the other Shakespeare play in one play together. I think it would be funny. I think Cleopatra would make fun of Hamlet a lot, and just kind of, tell him to chill out and relax a little bit. And I feel like she would probably do it in a very funny way. I mean, because she I think is just as intelligent as him as a person if they were people. It would just be funny. It would actually be kind of funny if Hamlet and Cleopatra were pushed into an arranged marriage together. I don't think they would fall in love on their own. I don't think they would fall in love of their own volition. But if they were forced into an arranged marriage, it would be really funny to see how they would interact as a married couple. It would probably be hilarious. And actually, I mean, Hamlet can also be funny. Like, there are definitely funny moments to Hamlet that belong to Hamlet, the character. So, they would have some interesting banter between them, I think. So yeah. Next, coffee cake. If you could see any poet, dead or alive, recite poetry at your cafe, which one would it be? And I had an answer for this when I first encountered the tag, and I was gonna say Sylvia Plath, because I have listened to a lot of recordings of Sylvia Plath reading her poetry, and I found them very haunting, and I don't know, because her poetry is so personal to her, it's very appropriate to have her specifically read her poetry. But I have a different answer now, because I've just started to get into this poet's work, and it's James Merrill. I guess this cover doesn't tell you much, I took the dust jacket off, but James Merrill, I've just started to read this selected volume of his poetry, and I've listened to some audio recordings of him reading his own poetry, and he has such a cool voice. I don't know, he has a cool voice, a very gentle voice, and he has a really interesting accent too. I know he was born in New York City, and but I've never heard this accent before. It almost sounds British. It's strange, but it's not. Like, you can listen closely and it's not British, but it could almost be British. And on top of that, like I said, he just has a very soothing, gentle voice. Listening to him read one of his poems made me look at it a bit differently, I think, than when I read it on a page. So yeah, James Merrill. I would like to see James Merrill give a reading. Next is Cruffin, a great short work of French literature, and this one I'm gonna go with. I don't read much French literature, not because I have anything against French literature, just because I haven't really gotten around to it, but I'm gonna go with Discourse on the Origin of Inequality by Jean-Jacques Rousseau, a work of political philosophy that I think has a lot of psychological insights that were very much ahead of its time. I read this. I studied psychology in graduate school, and I can see a lot of the insights that academic psychology would go on to discover in science that Rousseau just saw and parceled out here, and that's just fascinating to me. What a genius to figure all those things out without any kind of science. He just had his own kind of observations of people. So yeah, and number 10 is Muffin Top, a work that would be better abridged. And for this, I'm going with Social and Psychological Bases of Ideology and System Justification. Why do I think it should be abridged? Well, just listen to that title. That doesn't tell you why, then nothing will. And then number 11, what is your favorite muffin? I don't have a particularly favorite muffin. I'm not a big muffin person. I do like muffins. I will eat them if they are available, but I won't be too particular. I'll probably go for either blueberry or chocolate chip, which is boring, but that's my answer, so yeah, anyway, so that is that is Josh's muffin book tag. So, thank you for tagging me, Elena, and I will see you all, another day. Goodbye, everyone.